Good morning. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips. This is your host, Anne, and we do not have a disembodied voice. Justin, today we do have a squeaky Kiri. Kiri, where'd you go? Where'd you go? You knocked it behind you. Kiri is losing her ball and finding it again because, when you're that old, you can hide your own Christmas presents. How is everybody today? Good girl. Good squeak. Good squeak. Yay. Silly girl. Yes, the squeaks. The squeaks say hello. There you go. Silly girl, you gonna lie down on that other ball? That's very silly. Okay, we're good. We're good. We do have a high chance of Kiri emergency today, just so y'all know. So if I suddenly go, oh noes, and run out of the room, you'll know it's Kiri. Today it is snowing, Shadow Raven says. Oh my. Snow, what is this white stuff you talk about? We hadn't even had any of that, like, the last several years in Texas. Except for a tiny bit. We did have a tiny bit last year, because I got a picture of a Kiri out in it. It was, like, 1 inch, I think, and it was the first snow for a few years. Yes, I actually don't mind snow. I just don't like cold, like bitter cold. It's annoying. Yes, it is morning, for sure, Xander. I don't know whether it's a good morning. I'm kind of sleepy. Even though I sucked down a cup of caffeine, I think I need more than one. Oh, you got, yes, a lot in Wisconsin, I see. Yeah, my mom was complaining to me about the terrible weather that you've been having in Wisconsin. They're ready to go to Arizona. They drive typically right after Halloween because they like to be with the grandkids for Halloween. I'm going to go to minicam. Twitch is being twitchy. Great. I can message Justin. He's running the show remotely today, so... Oh, so let us just... some complaints that Twitch is being twitchy. I'll just give him a little twitchy FYI. I'm just gonna keep him updated since he's kinda FYI. My dashboard says good. There we go. Yeah, anything we say to Justin today, we have to type to him, so. That would be a great one, Pendrake, actually. An exclamation point Kiri command. Yes, that actually would be wonderful. Like, actually, I'm going to make a note of that because that's such a great idea, because I should have a Kiri has needs command. Excellent. And it can also use the little Kiri emoji. Exclamation point Kiri. Kiri has needs. Be right back. There we go. That's actually a really good idea. Thanks, Pendrake. Oh, really, Shadow Raven? Well, I told Justin we were having some... Hey, Salter. How's it going? Hey, Quindy. And Nomad Zeke and everybody. Oh. Well, pinks are hard, right? Because we don't have a lot of them, and the ones we have are getting canceled. David thinks that's really hilarious, but it's so true. Old West Rose, for example, is getting canceled. And, our pinks tend to get canceled because people just apparently have something against pink.
Unfortunately, reds are really popular.
Yeah, so you can mix pink really easily, as David is about to say. I don't know what colored Goblin Dog pink is from PaizoCon. If we made it for them, which I assume we did, I guess Sadie is probably the best person to ask for that, because I don't have a sample of it, so I can't tell you. Unless somebody wants to put a swatch up on the Discord. All right, let's see here. I'm going to do guns today. Hey, guys, are we doing metallics or are we doing animinims on the guns? Probably makes more sense to do metallics. What do you think? Yeah, the Twitch is evil. See, I need a metallics versus NMM, guys. What do you want? What do you want on the guns? What do you want?
What do you think they would do on an actual pirate ship?
Metallics, says Carly Hamster. Scrying Eye says metallics, bigger mini. Oh, Sadie said she couldn't find a bottle or the recipe. May have been just tossed together then. Then in that case, Netta, if one of you has a copy of it, if one of you has a bottle of it, or know somebody who does, and they can do a swatch and take a picture of it, I could probably get close. Well, it certainly wasn't a PaizoCon color last year. I think last year we sent them samples of the existing line. So, if I recall correctly. So, it was super recent. I'm going to get in focus here, lords and ladies. Hold on. Let me get down and let me get focused. There. I thought about blacking inner skin too. I'll probably do both. So we got to get the guns. The guns are going to be brown base coat. I am going to actually do what I always say I'm going to do. And today we're going to bubble wrap her. You don't need very much bubble wrap. You just want something to hold the mini to keep the paint from rubbing off. And this soft bubble wrap is not stiff at all. See how I can crinkle it? This soft bubble wrap is the ideal bubble wrap. So if you get something in the mail and you get a sheet of this stuff, just hang on to it. It's really useful when you're painting bigger minis to just gently hold them. And like I said, because it's so smooth and it's totally non-abrasive and it has cushioning built in, it's the perfect thing to hold big, weighty, or otherwise awkward miniatures. Actually, Soltor, I don't really have a model I can show you on right now. Probably the Dragonkin I did for our paint along on the Patreon would be close, but you really just have to kind of dot the scales in. If you can see, if the scale texture isn't really there, you kind of have to create it. Like I said, I haven't really done, I guess that's one thing I could do on the Patreon that I haven't done yet. I could do a scales thing. Painting, I did a fur texture just yesterday, the day before. I put up a fur texture video. It's a lot like that, only you're doing scale texture instead. So scales, I'll put that down. I haven't done that on the Patreon. I haven't done feathers either. Probably should, right? This is a chill and morning. You can tell I need like another 40 milligrams of caffeine in me. Lurk mode activated. Got it, Liquid Nebula. Awesome.
I find scales a lot harder than fur, so I would actually find that useful.
Ah, okay. Our cats love eating bubble wrap. Yes, Krinika, well, you must protect. Oh, Goblin Dog looks like a slightly lighter version of BCA. Are you sure it's not really close to, where are my pinks? I had a bunch of Pathfinder pinks in here. Maybe I removed them. Is it Milani Rose I'm thinking of? There's a pink. Let me see. It's not Sturge. Maybe it is Milani Rose. It may be, or maybe it is like bluer. If it's a lighter version of BCA pink, just add white to BCA pink. Just do like a 4-to-1. You'll probably be fine. Or just use BCA pink if people are using it in recipes. Yeah, if you've got something like that big Chibi to Mononoke, which I also have to order at some point, then yeah, you want to get, I mean, just order, it's easiest to just, like, if you get some in an Amazon package or a package from somewhere else, just keep it, right? Just stuff it in your drawer of miniature painting supplies. I have a bunch of shreds of it around here, and I just grab them when I need them. And it's useful pretty much for everything like 54 millimeter and up. So if I'm painting anything from like my 54 millimeter Valkyrie chick, anything from her on up, and she's, you know, significantly smaller than this, but because she's big and awkward, and because she's metal, especially if you're working on a bigger metal model, I always use this stuff because it lets you hold the miniature without abrasion, and it minimizes the amount of rub off you do. And it's comfortable because it's soft on your hand, right? And it keeps you from, it also keeps you from the oils of your fingers, if you have oily fingers, which a lot of people do. It'll keep you from hitting areas of the model that you haven't painted yet, which then might cause the paint not to stick very well. Xandercleese, thank you for the resub. Awesome. Oh, BCA to highlight the Gob Dog pink. All right, well then it's a little darker. All right, then take clear magenta and drop a drop in there into the BCA. Do like a five drops of BCA and 1 drop of clear magenta. You probably get close. And if that doesn't look right, if it looks too cold or too purpley, then do a drop of clear red instead. Try that. Post specifically mentioned Milani Rose. Well, Milani Rose is a really pale color, so yeah, if they were trying to do something darker. Yeah, but what Pendrake said is telling. If they used BCA pink to highlight the Goblin Dog pink, that means Goblin Dog pink is actually darker. It's up to you, Netta. If you never paint any big minis, then, you know, you don't have to. But this is the tip that I've used for probably 20 years. I used it when I was painting all the big metal Reaper dragons. All right, I think I want to use... where is my russet brown? Where are you, russet brown? Favorite brown o' mine? You're around here somewhere. Nope, that's the wrong brown. Nope, that's the wrong brown. Jeez. You know, I'm just misplacing stuff lately. How about you? Yes, no, you're ruddy leather. All right, I really need to organize my browns at this point. This is ridiculous. I have way too many browns here on my desk, and they are getting confused. Don't you hate it when that happens? Like, seriously, I use this brown all the time. Did I inadvertently knock it on the floor? I mean, this is entirely possible. I do it all the time. But I am not certain. Well, I guess we're not using russet brown because I have just eaten it or something. That's not it, is it? You're not my friend, are you? Like, seriously, this is nuts. Speaking of nuts, next, oh, there it is. Yay! It was deceiving me because it had a black cap on it. See, and it's not supposed to. Yeah, I mean, a glove works, but I don't, for one thing, I hate the feel of gloves on my hands. I don't know if I just have a latex thing or what, but it's just irritating to me. And this way, I don't know, I can't even explain to you how like unsettling and unhappy I am when I have a glove on. So for me, this is the compromise. Also, the additional cushioning I find helpful as far as the bubble wrap actually cushioning your hand. So yes, if you can use gloves, you can use gloves. I really just can't, or I choose not to because I find it a very unpleasant experience. I feel like my hand is suffocating or something. I don't know. It's weird. I'm set in my ways. That's what I am. But I have a perfectly acceptable way to do it, so I just do that. But yeah, gloves work. As long as you're not also bearing down on the model. Finger pressure also counts, so. All right, now we need that canceled color. Oh wait, we need 2 canceled colors. All right, we'll use something that's not canceled, guys. How about that? Since Ed canceled my 2 favorite, or did he cancel Driftwood? I don't remember. I thought he did, but maybe I am hallucinating. Driftwood Brown, 9162. I don't remember if that was the one. That was one that Ed decided he did not like anymore. And I can't find my Driftwood, so we're just going to use Shield, and we're going to go up with like Creamy Ivory. We'll do it that way. That'll work. Yeah, I don't know where I stuffed my Driftwood. There's leather. That doesn't help me. My drawer is just like really... Oh, there we are. Yay, Driftwood. Still valid. Thank you, D. Clearman. All right, well, good. At least we've got that. So then, remember we went up with desert sand on some of these areas. So I'm going to go up slightly warmer and different on the guns when I'm doing an actual wood, quote unquote. Also, when wood was painted or brown detailing was done on figureheads, they typically used a pretty rich or darker brown. I suspect they used, like, burnt umber. Remember, they were using actual oil paint, so they probably did have access or use regular artist colors. I think I'm going to paint this whole thing in russet. Now, I could actually, let's stop and think. So, we got to remember our contrast, right? So, we've got kind of a medium color to a dark color to a light color to a very dark color. But this is the only very dark color. The bodice here is the only very dark color so far on this model. I know the skin's going to be lighter. So that means that maybe I need to go very dark with the guns. And if I need to go very dark with the guns, do you guys remember what we kind of showed on the Sphinx? Where if you start with a very dark base coat, then everything on that area looks darker, even if you layer it up very high. So we're going to utilize that. Like if we compare Sphinxy to like the Bard figure that I was painting on my other stream, you know, same skin color actually as far as the ruddy flesh. That's the highlight on the Sphinx, and it's most of her skin tone. But this bard looks much lighter than the Sphinx does because we started with a lighter base coat. We started with ruddy flesh as a base coat instead of ebony flesh. So what we're going to do is we're going to utilize that to help us here. We're going to start with 9137 actually, which is darker than russet, which is what russet is going to be kind of our base. So we're going to start with our shadow. Yeah, if it's super cold, snag them the minute they show up, Saltor. Ordering paint in the winter is non-optimal. That said, if you have a freeze, like if you have a paint freeze, then one, you should immediately, like after trying to use it for the first time, you'll know. It kind of goes, it separates a lot. It tries to go cottage cheese consistency kind of. It's kind of gross. And if it's a metallic, then it'll turn to powder. It'll be, really crazy. It needs to freeze pretty solid for these things to happen, but paint in general, even if you get a bucket of house paint from the store, you will notice on the side a "do not freeze" in big letters. And that's because freezing water-based paint, and if you think about it, it makes sense, because when what's going to freeze in a paint? Water, right? So all of the water is going to freeze up, and it's going to squeeze as it slowly freezes. It's going to force like the sediment and the resins out of solution, because the water is going to want to freeze. The resins don't care about freezing. So what happens is it's permanently forced out of solution, and you just cannot get it back. Yeah, it'll turn into a sponge, or it'll turn to powder depending on how, you know, which flake and which and how pigmented it is and other stuff. So we're going to paint the whole thing black and brown, guys. All of it, even the metal parts, because using a dark brown as a base for the metallics will make them show up better. And I'm just going to be real careful when I paint around details. I don't want to like have to touch up this light green sleeve. But yeah, frozen paint will become immediately apparent when you try to shake it up and use it for the first time, and Reaper will replace your paint. At least last I checked, they will. I should point out that the vast majority of people who order paint in the winter seem to do perfectly fine. But there are always, if you're in a northern climate or mountainous climate, there always seems to be people who get unlucky. You know what? This is a big model, and I'm using the wrong brush for this. Ta-da! Giant flat brush. Much better at doing this. Much better. Not better when I get close to the details, but much better for getting the majority of the gun base coated. And it's still a little bit sharp, so it can get a little bit close to this stuff. But I'll do the final touch-ups with regular brush. Boop. Yeah. That said, if you have a if you have a period of a couple months where it's very cold, like where it's going to drop sub-zero, get your paint ordering in now. Because when it's really, really freezy, the amount of time it takes for your paint to freeze is you know, reduced, obviously. So if you are in a cold climate, right now, when it's only in the teens or whatever, and it's not sub 40, now is the time to place your paint order. You have a much better chance of getting your paint to you intact. And then I would wait to order more paint until the spring. Purely practicality. Because it doesn't help if Reaper's going to replace your paint if every time they send it, it's getting colder and colder up near you, and it freezes even easier. So if you live in a cold climate, paint ordering, there's tactical paint ordering. I grew up in Wisconsin, Saltor. We got plenty of -20, -30, -4. I remember only hit -40 once in my memory when I was in college, and they actually told kids they didn't have to go to classes. They didn't have to walk to classes because it was a pretty long walk. For those couple days, they kind of just said, yeah, well, if you don't want to walk to classes, don't. Well, I was a bit inland. I mean, I grew up with lake effect because I was only about 20 minutes from Lake Michigan, but I went to school in Madison, so that's tiny lakes and an isthmus, but it gets cold. That's why I left and never went back. It's so true. Like I spent, there came a point after I moved to Baltimore, which also was warmer than Wisconsin. I spent the rest of my life after I first moved out of state, continually moving to other warmer states. Maybe I was climate shopping, right? So yeah, Baltimore, and then I moved back to Wisconsin briefly before I moved down here to take the job, or just, sorry, down to Texas to take the job with Reaper. And, oh, Calgary, cold. Yeah, Ninja, you're kind of screwed if you need paint now. If it's already in the negatives where you are, I would hold off if you can make do with the paint you've got. I mean, Ed hates for me to say that because he wants people to just, you know, order the paint if they need it, but I wouldn't take the chance if I were you. There. Oh, we need to decide where those little bands on her blouse are, what color those are. Maybe we'll make them dark green and bring them back down to the dress color. All right, I think I got all, except for this way back area here. Because this model is assembled, it can be hard to get these little areas, but just do your best. That's where it helps, so we're just using a dark color right now. You just need to get it dark. There we go. Yeah, I grew up driving in snow, so that's no fear for me really, but I like snow. I like having I like seeing real winter, and then I like being able to leave it. Oh dear. So yeah, then I went to Texas for 17 years, and then I came out to California, so I didn't even bother going back to Wisconsin in between those. Plus, you know, when your parents have given up on it and gone to Arizona for half the year for most of the years you can remember, it's like, well, why should I go to Wisconsin in the winter? Like, if I want to see snow, I can go up into the mountains around here. David will probably want to go to Tahoe, assuming they can make skiing safe this winter. Safe-ish, anyway. Boop. So using this big flat brush is nice when you're doing something as large as this model. This is a Reaper number 4 flat. It's the biggest flat we make. And before, if you haven't totally brutalized it, it still has enough of an edge to get into detailed areas without being too imprecise. Although for that really recessed area right there, I need to use my round. Oh, Justin's going to Aspen? No. Yeah, David is he's the big skier. I used to ski when I was younger. I skied in high school, and I skied a little bit in college, but then I just didn't have time for it. Oh, I think Kiri's activating, guys. If Kiri activates today, which she should, because honestly, she hardly went this morning, you guys will have to entertain yourselves for a few minutes. Because, yeah, she's got tail sign. All right, I'm going to put the Q emergency screen up. Please talk amongst yourselves about awful cold weather stories, and I will come back, okay? See you in a bit. Hello, everybody. Your safe flower is the construction barrel. That's pretty awesome, Nemedzik. Alrighty, so Q emergency has been expelled. I think we're good. I think we're back. Yay. Hello, everybody. I'm just reading what you were talking about. It's like somebody was talking about a D&D game. We made up dragons in our stream yesterday. Pretty soon we're gonna start role-playing, guys. On my stream game. I have kind of an idea. Let's see here. Oh, all the minis you have and can't use in person. Got it. Oh, yum. That sounds good, Inara. Good, Saltor. Yeah. See, that's what I'm hoping. It's like that the campaign creation aspect of it helps inspire people to get like some of their own stuff done. I mean, that's the ideal, right? Just like this stream can help inspire people to paint more. All right, I need my round brush here, and I need to get these parts of the gun that you can kind of see that we don't have painted in yet. Need a sharper tip for that. Yeah, I think I agree. I liked creating the dragons, and now we know, right? So now we know that we can extrapolate, and now we know that each god has like a dragon as like a servant or a helper or an avatar or a slave, depending on the god. So yeah, and you never know which stories are true or not. So it's it'll be fun. And from that we can extrapolate to Dragonborn. I kind of like the idea that the Dragonborn are very into like kind of astrology, or palm reading, except it's scale reading. So like when you're a baby dragonkin, or Dragonborn, they take you into the scale reader. If your family is suspicious, right? If your family is superstitious, they take you to a scale reader, and the scale reader uses your color and the patterning of your scales to foretell, like, which god will favor you and all this kind of thing. And the cool thing about that, the coolest thing about this, guys, is that since probably different colors of Dragonborn have interbred since the early days, every Dragonborn can have a unique scale pattern, just like fingerprints, right? So you have a predominant color as a Dragonborn, like maybe you're mostly red, but then maybe you also have like a patterning of bronze and black, right? And in Dragonborn culture, the superstitious side of Dragonborn culture perhaps believes that you will be a specific way, or that your fate will be a specific way, or your future will be told a certain way because of your scale patterning and the way you were born. Kind of like astrology, a mix of astrology, numerology, and palm reading. That's because remember, the Dragonborn come from a very the lizard man base, lizard folk who are not very enlightened or evolved necessarily, and they would have like primitive superstitions and ideas. So maybe that's one of the things that held on, since those early days. So yes, if you like world creation and role-playing, and you want to come join us, guys, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays on my personal stream, which is twitch.tv/paintingbig. It will often be hosted on Reaper, but and we do paint a little. I'm trying to paint more. What I'd really like to get is somebody, I know Pendrake takes notes, but if we could have a couple people to do it, because Pendrake isn't always on, it would be cool to have somebody who could take notes just in case I don't get everything down, because I would like to paint more during the stream, because it is a combo stream. And some people are going to be there, more for the painting and less for the world building if they're not running a game. And some people are going to be, hey, kitty dog, boop, 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 boop. No. You, be good. There we go. Sometimes she just wants to lick at herself and worry herself, guys, so I have to interrupt the Curie dog. Sorry about that. I have a world scribe, which is essentially the same thing, Saltar, which is Pendrake. He keeps notes on what we do. I just feel like I need more than one, just like I needed more than one mod, because you can never have one person who's going to be on all the time. And that's why there's stream notes channel in the new Discord for the stream game. So that people can, if you guys want to cooperatively, I guess I originally said only the world scribes could use that channel, but I can take that back. I guess maybe it makes more sense for people to put up notes if they feel like it, or if there was a part they specifically really liked and they want me to remember. I'm trying to remember it all, but inevitably, good as my memory is, and like I said, I take a lot of notes now in order to remember everything, especially when we're doing titchy little stuff like naming, like figuring out what color each dragon is and which god it's allied to and stuff like that. Then I do need to stop and take notes, but that makes like watching the stream boring, so I've got to maybe minimize my role in doing that in the future, since I'm not so much worried, because when we start doing some role-playing, some actual role-playing, then I can do that, and I don't need to write down any of that. That's for the players to keep some notes. But in creation of the world, we definitely need to make... Yes, we need to apprentice word scribes. World scribes, yes. Subscribes. Yeah, Nomad Zeke, you just guaranteed you're not going to be one. Minus 50 DKP. Oh, dear. Can always depend on Nomad Zeke for the pun. All right, so we got our guns based in mostly... Oh, I missed a spot. There. That's better. Now I'll kind of look at him on camera. That's part of her dress. Missing a spot back here. This is pretty good. A little bit missed up there. Want to get a nice solid base coat on, because you're going to use this. Probably going to leave this in place as lining too, because we've got all this filigree, metal filigree on the gun. Yeah, I know, Chibi. Some people are working and just can't keep notes. That's why it's like, it's going to be probably on a very voluntary nature. But if you want to, like if you're interested in becoming a world scribe in training, or an additional world scribe, and just kind of putting up some notes on stuff we talk about, if you have time, just, speak up on the stream game Discord that you'd like to do it, and I can certainly give you access. Assuming I kind of remember that I thought I limited write access in that to world scribe only. And you get a different colored, you get to be a world scribe, like that actually is your title on the Discord. And it's blue. You get to be blue. There. Alright, I think I've gotten everything. That's cool, Chibi. It's alright. You're good just because you talk a lot, right? You have lots of good ideas. Alright, I think I'll map out the metal. And then, yeah, normally I would do the wood first. But I think we've got, like, this rod here is going to be metal. I think I'm going to go for bronzy color. Let me see what I've got for metals. What have I got for metallics, Kiri Dog? Probably not a lot right here. Now, given what they would have used originally, would have probably been a gold. Did I put all my metallics away? That figures. Well, that's easy to remedy, Kiri. We'll get them out again. Here we go. As I fish for my metallics. Fishing. There we go. That was easy. Fishing paid off. But we need all ideas. Good and bad. We're like the Lego movie. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's a good idea, Pendrake. It's just that the apprentice could DM you some stuff, and that way you could put it all together. Yeah, it's no problem, Mo. I like seeing you on anyway. Yeah, the story we figured out Mighty Jabberwock was that World Dragon was kind of the last one of his generation, and he still had a clutch of 10 eggs that needed to be raised. So he essentially gave one to each god, and essentially said, you guys are responsible for raising these, you know. I can't do it. He probably had already raised some kids or tried to raise some kids. Or maybe he hadn't. Maybe these were his only kids. Maybe they aren't even his kids. I don't know. We'll see. Nobody knows but him. But the story is that he gave one egg to each god so that they could raise the young dragons. And those are the progenitor dragons of all the dragons currently on the world. So each race of dragons that currently exists in our stream game world is comes down from those. All right, so I've got tarnished brass, and I really like tarnished brass. I think we're going to use that, guys. And to highlight it, I think we're going to use new gold, because that's my standard highlighting color for any yellow metallic. But I think we're going to mix some shining mithril in with it. I could use pearl white, but I like to use pearl white for gold more. Oh, I've got dragon bronze too. Let's see. Can we use those together? Yeah, maybe I'll use dragon bronze. Might use dragon bronze. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll go with that. We'll go with that for now. Oh, I've got some outside beeping noises. Yeah, we're going to mix metallics for sure. And we're going to mix paints with... yeah, a little bit, Mighty Jabberwock. You know, no idea in writing or gaming is truly original. And in fact, you don't want it to be. You want it to be just slightly familiar. To have something be just slightly familiar to people is actually the best. Because then it triggers, you know, like memories and familiarity, and they feel kind of like, hey, oh, it's this kind of story. And then you can get original from there, and they'll appreciate the originality, but they'll still be happy because it's a story that they like, or similar to a story that they like somewhere else. So it's a fine balance, and it's really nothing you can teach, is what they told me in Viable Paradise, in the writing workshop that I went to. It's like you want it the same. It's Hollywood calls it, make it the same but different. But Hollywood maybe goes too far toward the same, where it's just another one of these. Whereas really the only thing is it just needs to be slightly familiar. And then you springboard from there. You don't want to make everything too alien, or people don't feel like they have a foothold in your world. But you want just enough familiar and just enough creative. All right, let's try Dragon Bronze and see if we like that as a base. Yes, Twisted Oma. Well, if it's a Lego movie, you just need ideas. No matter how stupid they are, everybody's ideas have value. That's almost a direct quote, I think. It's certainly the philosophy of the Lego movie. So this is much colder. I forgot how cold Dragon Bronze was. I wonder if I can mix brass and bronze and get a color that I like. Nope, there's a little piece of dried paint on the tip of that. Let's see. Yeah, the tarnished brass I like because it's really warm. See that, guys? See the difference between those two colors? The colder one around the outside is the Dragon Bronze from Bones, and then you've got tarnished brass, which is 91, 98 on the inside. And I often will mix if I feel like I want it maybe a little colder than the brass, but a little bit warmer than the bronze. This is really the difference between brass and bronze. Although it varies by the precise mix. That's why museums, I've mentioned this before, but museums have given up actually saying something is brass or bronze. They just say copper alloy now, because every culture and every piece seems to have been mixed slightly differently, so you can't really give it a baseline of what metals were added. So yeah, I like this color. We'll start with this color. We're going to end up going warmer with our highlights on it, unless I decide to just mix white in, but I think we're going to mix the new gold in. We might also mix the mithril in. The reason I'm going with mithril, by the way, instead of pearl white, is that this is very yellow, the new gold, right? Oh, hey, raiding Miniatures Den. A gigantic raid from Luca. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. I'm Ann. I work for Reaper Miniatures. We do this every morning at about 11:30 a.m. Central Time, USA. And today we are working on a gigantic piece from the Bones 5 Kickstarter. Here, I'll zoom out so you guys can see her. The Kickstarter is still open right now for ordering. But this is the figurehead for the pirate ship. And this is one of the figureheads. And you can order her separately if you just want to paint a gigantic pirate lady, which I personally find very fun. So yeah. So hey. They're wooden. You can see the wood grain on them, Pendrake. And I'm going to paint them partially wooden and partially the brass bronze mixture that we just made. Kind of do the filigree in the brass bronze and all the fixings. They look like flintlocks, so I'm just going to do that. I wanted the contrast of the dark brown because we have a lot of light colors coming in up here between the light green that we are doing her sleeves in, and then the skin, and then I may make her blonde. I haven't decided yet. May make her a redhead, but I don't know if redhead's going to work because we want to take this pink, this washed out dark red, and put it up on the head here. So what I'm doing here, guys. Yeah, I don't think we've got one, Coobs. I don't know if Ron ever asked Chris if he could do that. But so for new people, I'm doing the actual like figurehead has been battered by wind and water kind of thing. So this is textured, weathered texture, as if the paint is actually coming off. 1 second. There, now you can see the details. So that's where we've been going. We started actually way down here, and you see I don't have the other side all done. It's such a big model, you have to work in sections. So we've kind of just been figuring out the color scheme as we go up. I wanted this, on figureheads, often you'll see traces of the original paint on the back side of the figurehead, because this is where she'd be attached to the ship, right? So everything's darker and actually the real color back here and a little bit in shadow. And then as you go toward the front, depending on how long it's been since the figurehead was repainted, you'll see, various erosion happening, and it'll be strongest in the very forefront of the model. And then you may see traces of paint clinging along the sides here. I think she's been fairly freshly painted, so I'm not going to do a ton of weathering as I go back toward the back. I really like the transitioning I'm getting here. So, just checking chat to make sure nobody's asking any big questions. But yeah, so this is why we've got this texturing and this bleaching out of the colors here. I did some research on ships' figureheads. They were actually painted in oil paints. They hired real artists to do it, and it was really expensive. That's why they'd let them wear down so much before they got them repainted, is because it was actually really expensive to get them repainted, to get an artist to do them. And there were some artists who were fairly famous for painting figureheads as well, and demanded a pretty high price. So as we go through here, part of the color choices here are based on figureheads that I found when I was researching and the colors that I found. So actually the dark green and light green colors are based on a ship's figurehead that I found that had been restored. And then you often would see a red, which would often fade to rose. The skin tones were actually quite realistic because they had actual artists painting them in oil paints. You would get like an actual skin color. You get the blush on the cheeks and everything. So a lot of time was spent actually on the face. Might be a Sophie bust in the next Kickstarter. That would be great. You should all bug Ron during Reaper Live on Thursday nights. That's what I say. But yes. All right, so that's where we are, and right now I'm just decided to work on the guns today. We do a lot of different models on this stream, and I tend to go back and forth so that we're working on different techniques and everything. Today we're kind of playing with metallics. So I started out with a very dark brown, base coating both the wood and the metal of the gun, because base coating, the way that acrylic paints work, as far as metallics go, is many of them are based on a mica flake or some other semi-transparent flake. And what this means is to get like decent coverage and maximum shine, they're actually formulated to go over a very dark color. Usually they're formulated to go over black, but close enough when you've got a really dark brown. So usually for like silvers or steels, I'll go black or dark gray as a base coat. But a gold, I like to go dark brown. So this time we're using black and brown, which is 9137, which is a kind of a dark chocolate color. I always thought it was. I would have called it dark chocolate, but I had a food rule. I didn't want little kids to get ideas, so I decided not to name anything after food. There are various times I lapsed on this, like with ginger cookie for the holidays, for the special edition paint, but So having base coated in dark brown, this means that when I start putting the metallic on, it's going to go on actually really solidly. It's not going to be streaky like it would be over white. It's just made to work better. I think I'm going to just go back in line, so I'm going to... And you may have noticed that I don't thin my metallics unless I may have put one brush full of water in. But not thinning means that we have to work swiftly and evenly to get an even coat. You don't want to go back and try to touch up the paint when it's starting to dry with metallics if you haven't thinned them. Now let's try to put 1 drop of water in there. The reason that metallics don't allow much thinning is that, one, the base is already very thin that they are mixed in. Any viscosity that you get with metallics is usually because of the flake, the actual flake that's added. So when you add too much water, since the base is so watery already, those flakes, because they're mica, usually they're stone or they're silicate based or they're, you know, any of the above, they sink. And that's why your metallics fall out of solution if you add too much water. That's cool, Los Torpedoes. Los Torpedoes. Los Torpedoes. That? Something like that. I mangle people's names. I think all Twitch streamers do to some extent, but I'm kind of famous for it. So, at least during the award ceremony at ReaperCon, I mangle names regularly. More busts. I still say the Monique de Noir art that I know exists in Ron's cabinet somewhere would be the perfect bust for Reaper. And I wish he would just get it done. He knows, I'm sure he knows the art I mean, too. All right, so now that we've thinned it, we're not getting as solid of a base coat. I'll move my palette out of the way since you guys don't really need to see it. So it's more solid on this side than it is on this side. But the advantage is that, I mean, with thinned paint, you get a nice more even layer. Like you can still risk getting kind of globby using metallics full strength. So I like to thin them just a tiny bit, and the key is just to thin them just a tiny bit. Don't thin them very much. So this was at least like an 8-to-1. I just put 1 drop of water in there, I think. So I can see through my first coat a little bit now, because I've thinned it. You can see how much it's been affected. It's actually quite profound, even with that little amount, that little water. So I'm getting a little streaking, but all I need to do is put on a second coat, so it's not a big deal. Also, if you want your metallics to go on smoother, use a softer brush. Use a sable brush and not a Taklon. Using softer bristles minimizes brush strokes. There we go. And if I blur off a little bit, I'm just going to come back and touch it up. Since I'm up against a dark brown, I can go back and add in some lining and neaten up things very easily. This might be... The problem with the thicker paint is it can be hard to do these tiny filigree parts. And this is why I say, guys, that I typically, with fine detail, I prefer to do NMM and not non-metallic metal and not metallics. Because it can be hard to make these little scroll work details show up in metallics. Sometimes you may even have to kind of underpaint them. See, and it's easy to blorf. Easy to get messy. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for these little filigrees, I think. I'll have to go back and adjust that one. Sometimes you throw some water at it, you can buff it off. Yeah, that buffed it off pretty well. Yes, that's typical, Saltor. Most art stores are not going to carry real, as you call it, Russian weasel butt fur, real Kolinsky sable. And the reason is that they're very pricey. So most art stores don't want to carry that pricey of an inventory. And they also know that they're kind of specialty brushes. In the art world, it's really only fine detail watercolorists who use the brushes that we do. And so most art stores won't carry them because they know they won't move. And if they have people mucking around with them a lot in the store, then they'll kind of get all kind of messed up. And you don't want your $25 brush to get messed up. So yeah, that's why it's really hard to find anything like this in person. Some game stores might carry Reaper brushes. Yes, that got a little blorfy. See, that's why it's hard to do this sort of thing. And imagine if we weren't using this dark of a brown. This gold wouldn't show up very well at all if we weren't using this dark of a base color. So He just calls it food. That's funny, Jabberwock. Yes, Blorf. So yeah, it can be hard to find good Kolinsky sable brushes. That's why I always order just from Dick Blick. Or there are a couple other stores that I've found over the years that carry good quality Kolinskys at good prices, but Dick Blick tends to, because they're huge and they order so much inventory that they're able to deep discount. You're usually going to get your best price on Dick Blick. On the plus side, if you order, I should say Winsor & Newton Series 7 actually is carried on Amazon now. And either Amazon or Dick Blick, if you order a brush online and it comes and it's like wrecked, if something has happened to it, if the tubule has fallen off and there are hairs sticking out all over and it's not a good brush, both Dick Blick and Amazon have an excellent return policy. They will just send you a new brush. So don't be afraid to contact them if you get a brush in the mail and it just looks like it's just not great. That said, before you do that, test it by getting it wet. Because you might get a brush in the mail, and it might look like... maybe its tubule has come off, and maybe it looks like this. And you're like, oh my god, that brush is totally wrecked. I can't paint with this. In reality, though, the only thing you care about is what it looks like when it's wet. And if it looks like this when it's wet, then you're fine. I can make a perfectly fine, really micro point with this. It didn't look good, but once it's wet, that's fine because it's going to have paint on it. When it's got paint on it, it's wet. As long as it reaches a good tip and holds it while it's wet, you're good. Hello, Ultra Squid. Yeah, I don't know. Some game stores, I mean, and I've run into this myself even. And I mean, game stores I used to work at, like that I had a relationship with the owners, and there was at least one that just would not carry Reaper paint, just insisted that they didn't need another paint line. I'm like, but this is a better paint line than any of the paint lines. You still carry Poly S, for God's sakes. You know, that kind of thing. But, you know, sometimes just some stores just don't want to carry it, or they think they might not be educated about the fact that, like, we've got a nice small countertop rack for the bones. So we actually have a small option for starting to carry our paint. The best thing you can do, honestly, is talk to people in your local community. And if you get like kind of a painting group, or if you have a group of people who paint, just keep special ordering Reaper paint at the store. And if enough people do it and you keep suggesting, hey, could you ever get a paint rack? I mean, they may do it just to shut you up. All right, so we've got some nice filigree here. And really, I'm just painting with the tip of the brush, and I'm having to reload my brush, to rinse and reload my brush fairly often, because this is thicker paint. I'm not able to paint quite as long as I would be able to with thinner paint. And then we've got this whole flintlock mechanism, which starts there and there. Yeah, and again, that's the thing about brick and mortar game stores is that what sells at the store is entirely dependent on the interests of the people running the store. And by running the store, I mean even your day-to-day clerks. So if you have a game store where most of the employees are really into magic cards and not into miniatures, paint isn't going to move. And vice versa. If you have a store that's really into like miniatures and isn't into magic's going to sit on the shelves. It really is dependent upon the employees to push it. Store black? Oh, just water as far as thinning my paint? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I want to do some really fine detail, if I feel like the paint needs it, I use a mixture of water and flow improver. But all Reaper paint already has flow improver in it already, so you only need water. You know, any other additives you choose to use are completely up to you, but it does not require it. All right, and then I've got a bit of brass here where this comes back. But yeah, I used to always doctor my paint when I used other paint lines, but I'm the one who created Reaper Master Series for Reaper, and I decided to add flow improver to the original formulation so that it'd be good out of the gate. You wouldn't need to buy. I mean, the amount of different additives we all bought back in the day to make our paint actually work better is kind of ridiculous. Like, paint should work out the gate. You shouldn't need all that stuff. So I really looked, when I was creating this line, I really looked for bases that worked great just with water. And then we added the flow improver. Some people we still make additives for Reaper. Like, we make a slow dry type of thing, a drying retarder. And we make extra flow improver in case you want a little bit more of that. Never really hurts. It's just not necessary for most applications. If you're doing some really fine freehand, then you may get more mileage out of adding extra flow improver or really fine details. All right, so we've got that gun, that part of the gun. Oop, I missed a part here. There is a little... Is that a band? Yeah, I guess it goes up just a little. I can't tell. It's so hard because this has like faux wood grain carved into it, and I can't tell which parts of the gun are supposed to be metal and which are actually supposed to be wood because everything has wood grain. Ah! Oh dear. You know, like all the mood here. So we're just gonna have to wing it. We're gonna make it up as we go along. But I do see a little extra thing here. And it might go all the way back, but I honestly can't tell. Interpret it as you will. There we go. Yeah, just be, you're exactly right. In any specialty shop, right? It's what sells is what your salespeople are going to be pushing, right? What they're going to say, what they're excited about it, what they're talking about. Like, that was always the biggest thing with Reaper, is that the Reaper game store is that the employees in general weren't as into painting. But when we did paint club on Saturdays, a lot of paint supplies would sell. And if we'd had employees who were as interested in painting as they were in Magic cards, we would have sold a lot more, paint during the week, and it wouldn't have just been, largely a weekend thing. Yeah, I think I'll do the other. I see that side of the gun's a lot rougher because it's toward the back. So I'll get to that later. We'll do the other. I forgot to do the little filigree on the handle. But yeah, I mean, because we saw that even in our game store. I worked in a game store when I was in college. Is just whatever the staff were into was the stuff it was really easy to get customers into. It makes sense, right? Yeah, I could see that in our, they have no space. Because that is the problem, is the paint line is, like, huge. Yeah, Ultra Squid. And, that's the thing, right? Although on Figureheads, there was often cracking and stuff just like this. So I think that on the Figurehead, it maybe fits a little bit better than it does on a lot of other wooden objects. For the most part, that's purely a gaming convention. Whenever you see XX texture on something, it's usually because the miniatures companies are trying to make it easier to paint. And specifically, they're trying to make it easier to, say, dry brush, do something really fast on, and make it look decent. So that's why you see deeply sculpted wood grain. It's the same reason that you see deeply sculpted texture on miniatures in general, is because then it's easier to do a dry brush and a wash on it. And it's a holdover from, the days of just painting gaming models really fast, and before all this, like, wanting to paint it well as fast kind of got popular here in the US. I think there's an artistic tradition in Europe, even for these models, that is older than we have, because so many of us here in the US got into the hobby through Dungeons and Dragons or Warhammer, and art isn't as respected here. Not at all. Being an art student and, an artsy kid, I can definitely say that art class was a second-class citizen in my schools. And if you were good at art, it was considered pretty useless, considering, all the attention that you got if you were good at football or gymnastics or whatever. You get my idea. So sadly, There we go. Now we've got that little filigree thing done. Technically, I might want to do the whole bulb down there, but I want some dark. Like this, I'm going to make a non-realistic but artistically driven decision to keep this, the butt of the gun looking more wood. I mean, technically it probably should be metal, but I want this dark color to break up all these light colors that are going to go on here. So because of that, I'm going to make that executive decision. Thanks for the resub, Scrying Eye. That's funny. Because it looks good, right? It's tactile. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right, Ultra Squid. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, I looked up historic figureheads. I did quite a bit of research on it. And there are several where you can see deep cracks where the wood is just splitting. Because after the oil paint protection wears off, you do get some of that. So maybe this one is a little bit over-enthusiastic with the amount of wood grain it's got. But again, I feel like that's still like the miniatures tradition to go overboard with texture rather than subtle with texture. And it really, I mean, when it comes down to it, it makes it evident that the model is wood, right? Or is something of the sort. It gives you the visual cue. Maybe you didn't need the visual cue, but we're going to assume that you did. Explain, Sarge. The reason I'm dabbing, the reason you see me kind of doing dab on these is to make sure I get a higher load of metallic onto these fine details. And so essentially I'm utilizing the fact that every time I lift up my brush, a dab of paint comes down, a little puddle of paint comes down. So if you see me dab, it's because I'm trying to put that thick layer down so I don't have to do that detail more than once. Because I'm using, you know, this kind of thicker paint, although I've thinned it just a little. I'm going to actually add another drop of water to it. Gotta watch out when you've got a paint, even if it's a deep paint puddle in your palette, which normally keeps paint good. You can see that my other paints are still pretty good, even though I haven't touched them or restirred them. But when you've got a thick paint puddle, but you haven't added much water, you are in danger of thickening faster than if you added water like I did with these guys. So you do want to keep an eye on it, on its consistency. Notice when it's thickening and drop another drop of water into it. You just got to be cautious with metallics so that you don't overwater. Right, exactly, Shadow Raven. It's that stylism versus realism thing again, and it varies by who's looking at it, right? Some people might think this looks great, and some people might be like, "Oh, that's too much." Like, I like it as far as just a stylistic look. It lets me do lots of break lines here and really bring it out. It adds texture for me to paint around, which, you know, is fun for me. But, you know, in some areas, I think it's maybe a little much. But it is what it is. Like, I might have enjoyed it more if I had to paint the texture on, but that wouldn't have been very friendly for people who are new to painting, who might still want to paint this figurehead. This way, they've got kind of a guideline where if they want to paint wood grain or separation in, they've got it right sculpted on the figure. Makes it easier for everybody. The butt of the gun is pretty cool with that swirling pattern. Pokey tool, yeah. Yeah, Soltar, you gotta get a pokey tool. Just use, like, in a pinch, I even use my pin vise. But the Reaper pokey tool that they sell, or any long rod or wire that's firm enough to punch through, you gotta do that. Because the Vallejo nipples do not stick on very well on those bottles. And I also have done that same thing. I've exploded, caused a pallet explosion by pushing too hard. So you gotta punch through the bottle tip to clear the clog. Especially with Vallejo, which is a more, like, their resin is more vinyl-y, which means it's thicker and goopier, which means it's going to clog more often. Alright, now we can start working on this part of the gun. Sometimes, Soltor, what you can do is you want to poke through it, and you want to poke all the way through it, all the way down through it, puncture that aperture. And then do this and shake it, and maybe do it again. Sometimes you're going to have to take the nipple off of the bottle, like, and this is true with Master Series, but very rarely. But if there's a big clog, you're going to have to actually pop this out and run the pin through it in the other direction to clear, because it could be that there is a little piece of latex base clogged in there. And in that case, just tapping it or trying to poke a pin through it might poke, but then it might, might be really stuck in there. That sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, use whatever pins. Doesn't matter. I like the pokey tool because it's comfortable to hold with the skull, but it's also, much more expensive than just going with just a pin. I just find that if I have, like, pokey pins around me that aren't, obviously, like, pokey tools, I tend to jab myself with them because danger prone. But beyond that, yes. Use whatever comes to hand. Like I said, in a pinch, I grab my pin vise and use that and just clean the bit off. And the mini slayer. Not lately. I've been working on a bunch of different things and not getting things done, Achilles. Working on a bunch of different stuff. But I mean, the duelist lady's almost done, so we may go back to her. I know I've got Pirate Girl to start too. So now when I've thinned my paint, notice I can get... I'm not dabbing so much. I'm just running the brush over it. But the downside is it's not as vibrant. So once it's dried, I have to go over it a second time to get a more bold color on it. So that's the trade-off when you thin your metallics. It's like, if you thin them, they'll go on smoother. But it also means that you might have to go over it twice, just like regular paint, right? Just like with a base coat. Yeah, right. Wine cork and sewing needle. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, T-pins are great, but hard to hold sometimes, I find. Do whatever. Like I said, whatever works as long as you've got something that you can unclog bottles with. So, going over all of this stuff that's metal... You can choose to either kind of leave some dark around things like this nail here that I've totally painted over, or you can just go back and line them or use a wash. This metallic is not as bright or light as some, and so doing a wash over it may give us limited returns. It'll probably tarnish it really down, which actually is why I like the bronze and brass colors, is that you can really darken them down with adding some glazes of color over the top of them. Yeah, but I can't, yeah, I mean, I've got all these models, all these commission models, and, Ms. Targaryen. Look, she's almost done, guys. She's almost done. And I got to do freehand on the back of Aegon Targaryen today on the stream. We'll do a little bit of a touch-up on his red, and then we'll do the Targaryen house symbol on the back of his cape. I have to look up variants on the three-headed dragon and decide which one I want to use. And yeah, I mean, the D&D figures, they're just going to be painted on stream, so... On my stream, so... I don't count them so much. They're a labor of love rather than an assignment like commission work tends to be. There. Just a little bit of stuff. This a real figurehead? Just artist imagination. Lost Torpedoes. The sculptor is Chris Lewis, and I think Ron pretty much... I think this was actually sketched by our staff artist, Reaper's staff artist, Talon, Izzy Collier. And then Chris Lewis sculpted it from her sketch. We also have a hippocampus, a seahorse figurehead, and a Grim Reaper available for this ship that are all around this same size. But yeah, I don't know if Chris actually based it on anything, although there are certainly plenty of female figureheads of various types. From mythological to, like, nobles to random bar girls. They actually, I read that they actually chose good-looking females often because, in some cultures, because they thought that putting a pretty girl on their ship would be more likely to make the god of the sea spare it. I don't know if it really worked, but they thought it did, so... So having a pretty girl as one of our figurehead options is quite traditional. Yeah, see, now I'm getting some streaking and uneven coverage here because I've thinned the metallic a lot, so I've got to just back off and wait and put a second coat on there when it dries. Oh. I don't think this is based on something from a real ship. I don't know, though. I'm not certain. The sculptor could have based it on a real... Or do you mean, is there a pirate ship to go with this? There is actually a pirate ship that goes with this. It is huge. And it comes out with Reaper's Kickstarter Bones 5. And so this is actually a prototype, so she doesn't have the connectors on the back of her. But the actual model has connection points to attach to the pirate ship. The pirate ship wasn't... we didn't have any copies of the prototype pirate ship when I was still working for Reaper in person. But we had this, so I stole it. Totally snagged it. That's the only problem with me having moved away from Reaper now and just working for them part-time on stream is I can't, like, wander into the studio and snag pretty models to paint. Yeah, I don't know. Glow-in-the-dark ship does not excite me. I would rather paint it kind of ghostly, but that's just the way I roll, right? But yes, for all of you people who really want a glow-in-the-dark pirate ship, they are going to do it, so... But then you'd better, like, put your money where your mouth is, since they're doing a very limited amount. So again, I can put a thin layer on because I've thinned my metallics. I can just do a really, really, light layer, but it's not quite as solid. Aw, thanks for the gift, Subtashi. Yes, that's fantastic. Thank you for gifting that. We do like you, Tashi. It's awesome. It's always nice to make new friends on the stream. For sure. All right, here. Now we're gonna get started on this. We've almost got the guns kind of, mocked in. I am glad I went with the dark brown. And I am going to highlight that dark brown, but not quite yet. I figured you guys would rather talk about metallics a little bit. We don't talk about metallics very much because I do a lot of non-metallic metal. But hopefully some of my tips here have helped you. But yeah, if I was using a harsher brush like a Taklon or synthetic with this, I'd be getting a lot more streaking. Using a softer brush helps you get a more even base coat out of metallics if you're thinning them. And just like with regular paints for base coats, if you're getting a streakiness and it's not covering well, just wait, let it dry, put a second coat on, and you should be fine. Yeah, I went a little bit over. I blurfed on that. That's fine. We have plenty. Since we're only working with base coats right now, we have so much room to clean things up with a bit of lining. Oh, and I think the sculpt kind of takes that little filigree up near this barrel anyway. So we'll just finish it out. Let's see here. And for those who missed it, I used bubble wrap to kind of cushion the figure if I'm working with a large figure so that I don't put my oils of my hands on it. I don't rub off the figure. The bubble wrap is completely non-abrasive and it's soft. It gives you a comfortable hold. It just allows you to paint the model in stages without worrying about killing what you've already done. So that's why we have bubble wrap. Thanks, 9 cents change. Yes, it's true. Yeah, the brush you use really does have an impact. And it's simply because you're dealing with a particulate flake and a fairly thin base. So if you use a real hard brush, it's going to scrape the flake into streaks. So yeah, I always use a softer brush with metallics if I'm trying to get a solid coat. Man, I'm going out of frame. I need to remember here. Boop. She's such a big model, and it's actually hard to hold her so that the camera can see her right now, given the part of her that I'm working on and the fact that her leg projects down. Sadly, I got her when... I don't know if she comes in pieces or if she's a one-piece cast, or if she'll come glued together, but she is big enough to be hard to stick under the camera. That's because it's got a really durable finish in our... in order for the metallics to be shiny, the base that we use for our metallics anyway is a very high acrylic base, which is the most durable base. It has the highest hardness. So that means that if it even starts to dry in your brush bristles, it's going to be very hard to get out. So what I would advise maybe is just to rinse your brush a little more frequently when you're using metallics. Because you can see I've been using it, but I still am getting it all out of my brush. So that could be because I'm using a bigger brush, though, that retains a little more moisture in the bristles toward the butt. So that means that that paint is less likely to dry on the boundary line between where I've loaded it up and the back of the brush. Hey, I'm Grunning. Thanks for the resub. 10 months. Awesome. Okay, Shadow Raven. Well, I hope you make it this afternoon, but if you don't, we'll see you tomorrow. You know, Soltor, I find it varies with the metallic. I never have problems with that. I don't know. I think I just use waters or black because all Reaper paint, every Reaper paint has flow improver added. I know because I added it to every batch for 15 years. I mean, that literally, I've hand mixed every batch of MSP for 15 years. But yeah, so we add flow improver on the front end, so you guys don't have to use anything but water on the back end. Or sorry, on the back end, so you don't have to use anything but water on the front end. Ugh! I need more caffeine. This afternoon is going to have to be additional caffeine afternoon for Anne. There we go. Just touch that up a little bit more. But yeah, because our paint has flow improver in it, you can choose to add more if you want Zor Black, but it works great. Just thin it. Thin it with water. But yeah, the only time I do like add extra flow improver would be like if I was doing something like this really fine detail where I'm stippling and I'm getting this kind of speckly wood texture where it's wearing away. Then I might add a little extra flow improver to make sure my paint is coming off my brush in those tiny little dabs and dots. But maybe not. I mean, half the time I don't feel like I have to. If I have a problem with it, then I'll add extra flow improver. But I usually try it without first. I just use water. I think paint consistency is key here. Oh, yeah, Soltor. I do my D&D stream. Although today it is commission painting stream. I'm going to be doing, working on a Dark Sword commission. I've been working on a couple of them. I showed the one lady earlier. And then I've got Aegon Targaryen here. And on the back of his cape, we need to do the Targaryen house symbol. In NMM Gold, of course. But yeah, and then she's almost done too, guys. I've been working on everybody. I need her boots done and her gold hardware. But she's turned out really, really cool. So yeah, so that, working on those guys on my afternoon stream today. Tuesdays and Thursdays are my D&D streams, where we're creating a world together and we're going to roleplay. You thought it was Thursday already. Well, there will be a game on Thursday too, except it'll be the next stage of our D&D game. All right, I think I missed a little piece here. Now it's the double check time where it's like, where did I miss? So I kind of compare. Oh no, I made a huge blorf. Blorf. Look at that. Yeah, thanks, Cornico. It's with Dark Sword, Jim wants all NMM, all non-metallic metal, because it photographs better, and he just prefers the look. So all the stuff I do for Dark Sword has to be NMM. But yeah, her armor, Visenia's armor, is really nice. Actually, it was pretty fun to paint. Alrighty. Yeah, I got it scrubbed off. So the trick is, guys, if you make a big blorf, don't try to wipe it off right away. Instead, dip your brush in water and throw water at it. That way, it'll just loosen up and you can just scrub it off with your brush and just repaint fresh. And you don't have to paint over or worry about clogging up detail because you're putting a lot of layers on or something. But yeah, it had to be, their armor was like black, and so I looked at pictures of actual black armor, and it actually picks up a lot of light from the environment. So black plate mail, for example, it doesn't quite look black. It's more like a dark gray or has some sky color in it and stuff. So I used actually a black teal for the scale mail, and then tried to essentially keep enough black in it that it would read as black armor, which was a challenge. So glad you guys like it. Hopefully Jim will like it too. I need to finish those guys by the end of the month. Actually, I want to finish them within the next few days. So it's my goal for myself. All right, now I'm going to try to touch up that area again. Now that it's dry. After you flood it with water, you have to give it a second. There's just a tiny little like fishhook like design there. You guys see it? There it is. I got it. Like a little piece of filigree. Yeah, it's just tiny. Tiny little filigrees. The closest color would probably be either Reaper's Coal Black, which is a holiday black teal, Cornico, although that is a little bit more black. Or Secret Weapon, who we do paint for, has like a tire black or a rubber black. Those are really close. Like, I actually have a prototype bottle of the tire rubber, I think, and it's just really, here we go, wait, really, really close. Really, really close. So that color would probably be closer. I think probably Reaper's Coal Black would give you a little bit of an easier time, though, because it is darker. It's not quite as teal. So it would still give you a kind of a teal shift, so an interesting black, but it wouldn't, I had to pretty much overcome the teal in that NMM. I'd glaze some black over it and do it that way. And add more black shadows in to make it look darker. So once again, using the thinner gold, I'm going to see more streakiness. Don't sweat it, just put an extra layer on. You could also just mix it, Cornico, with clear green with a bit of clear blue and black. It's actually pretty easy to mix a really dark teal. And that way you could reproduce it all the time and not have to order a separate paint for it. I just happen to have the color I used is actually a canceled heavy gear color that I had in my bag just because I had a bunch of paint from eons ago. And that was Ram Black. But any black teal would work. I usually use blue black for that sort of thing. Usually use blue liner, but I felt like doing something a little bit different. And since it was with red, I thought the additional like kind of green shift to it would play well with red, since I knew the Targaryens were going to be black and red, since those are their house colors. Yeah, the back of the gun isn't sculpted quite as in detail, which is nice. You can just kind of block things in and not worry too much about it. And I'm going to neaten this up after. So I'm just going to glob on color more or less, and then neaten it up. We've got a little bit of suggestion of scroll work here, but there's not a whole lot. But I think, let me get backed out. Back out. Shiny. Shiny guns. Very shiny. Works generally with the color scheme. You think? Really want to get her skin tones kind of blocked in too. And maybe get the pink carried up to the top of her head. And then we can decide on hair color. It's probably going to be blonde. But I'm still considering red. Your fear of mixing. Oh, Mighty Jabberwock, thank you for the resub. Super awesome. How did my chat get all buried? I've got this thing. There we go. Now I can see more chat. Gotta get over that fear of mixing, guys. Mixing is fun. Mixing is fun. And if you don't do it, you will never learn it. You will never get better at it. Like, just because I know how to mix anything in the line doesn't mean I don't enjoy having a bunch of stuff in separate bottles. It just makes it easier for me. If I don't feel like mixing, or if I'm doing a large part of a model in a particular color, so remixing it all the time would be an annoying thing, then I don't have to. Oh wow, it's 11:15. Dang! Alright, time flies. I guess we should probably wrap it up. Let me text Justin real quick and tell him that we need a raid because he is working remotely today. Hey there, ready for a raid. We will find somebody awesome to raid. There we go. Boop. Mixing is fun, says the lady who made over 600 paints. Yes, mixing is fun. I stand by that. AMA is Friday. Friday at the usual 11:30 a.m. USA Central Time, and we will be giving away a big mini during the AMA. 3 of them, actually. Yeah, I don't really care about the superstitious thing. I was more like, what's going to look good with the colors? And sometimes you can make red hair look good with this rose color. I've done it before, especially when there's green, as you say, to play off of it. Wings and swords, it's the raid icon. Yeah, absolutely. So yes, the AMA is this Friday, guys. So come along, drop your question in the AMA channel on the Reaper Discord, although we have a crap ton of questions to get through, so this is going to be a while. That's Ed's evil plan, Kerniko. We'll never stop releasing paint. But yeah, so let's see if we got a Justin. Justin is on it. He is finding us a raid. But if you guys have any questions, shoot now, other than, obviously, AMA on Friday. So tomorrow is Thursday, so I'll have to figure out what we paint tomorrow, leading up to the AMA. Blue hair. No, that's too many colors. Like, unless I did blue-black, like I did here, I did nightmare black here, on the bodice, then I could do blue-black up there. But I like to repeat colors. You don't go too far, outside of like 3 strong colors, guys. You can go to 4 strong colors. Like if I did blonde hair, that would be 4 strong colors on the model. We'd have red, essentially, which is the pink. We'd have green. We have blue, which is a very dark blue. And we'd have yellow. That would be 3, and the gold also counts as yellow. So that's 4 colors. Going outside of that, unless you're very clever, can get you into color quandaries very quickly. Can end up with, oh, we're rating Sky Daddy. Awesome. Well, super, guys. Go enjoy Sky. She's a body painter. She does some awesome stuff. She's doing fantastic stuff for Halloween. And it's funny because a lot of the shading and highlighting she does is on face and collarbones and shoulders is a lot like we do on a miniature. So it's always useful. Have fun.